within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack, Worley III.
Author D.S. Edwards, who wrote the book Collective Retribution, and I cannot speak highly enough about this book. I love this book. Big fan. I can't wait for the next one to come out. From what I understand, he's making another one, so very excited. We're also going to be talking about the Ebola virus and the reaction that we're seeing from the Obama administration and the CDC. So you guys want to stay tuned for that. There's a lot of good information in there for you. You do not want to miss what we're about to cover. And I also want to hear from you guys as usual. Please feel free to give us a call. The MacPack phone lines are open, so feel free to light them up. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. And if you have a topic that you'd like to discuss that's not on the docket, something that I'm not talking about, something I'm not thinking about, feel free to pipe in. Let us know what you think. This is your show just as much as it is mine, so feel free to let me know what's on your mind. What issues are concerning you today? You can also, if you don't want to call in, you can always, as usual, email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And also, don't forget to check us out at our website, onthemoveshow.com. You can subscribe to us here at Blog Talk Radio /OnTheMoveShow. We'd appreciate it if you do that. Also, if you want to like our Facebook page, facebook.com /OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com /OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter, twitter.com /OnTheMoveShow. And, just to give you guys a heads up, if you don't know, we do have a store on our website, onthemoveshow.com. You can get there by clicking the shop link on the homepage, and we got hundreds of products for sale on there. It's a bunch of different kinds of stuff. It's a lot of the stuff is original, especially the merchandise store, the T-shirt store that we have. Lots of different products, not just T-shirts on there, all originally designed by us for you. And, we got like freeze-dried food in there, books that I recommend reading, bumper stickers, and so much more. Your support will help make On the Move bigger and better, and I got to say thank you so much for those of you who have already done that and for those of you who will in the future. So thank you so much for your support. So, what has been going on this week? Well, my wife is currently out of town. She's probably listening to this broadcast tonight. So hey, honey, if you're out there, I'm thinking of you. I miss you. I love you. And anyway, it's funny because I'm not used to being by myself. I'm like usually my wife is around, and I spend a great deal of time hanging out with her and spending that quality time. And anyway, she's out of town, and basically since she's been out of town, I've been doing a lot of reading, and I've cleaned a bunch of my guns and things like that, and also my diet has basically consisted solely of pizza. So, and that's not because I'm intending to do that or anything. It just happened to work out that way. I think I've had pizza 5 or 6 times since she's been gone, and it's pretty ridiculous. If you are what you eat, I'm going to turn into a pepperoni pizza any moment now. So, anyway, we're going to go ahead and move forward here into the first segment of the show. It's my favorite segment. We like to call it the Weekly Defender. Firearms to defend their family, their property, and or themselves. So our first Weekly Defender we found on WKMG in Orlando, Florida. Lizette Rosario was inside her home in Orange County, Florida, when her son alerted her to an attempt to break in. Rosario retrieved a 9mm pistol and went to confront the intruder, who fled behind the shed in the yard. With the help of her son, Rosario was able to hold the man until the police could arrive, and it doesn't say how long that took. As I've previously reported, response times for police departments are Not very great typically, but she could have been standing there for as long as a half hour or more, trying to hold this intruder at bay, basically, until the police arrived. So anyway, our next weekly defender we found on the Oklahoman in Oklahoma City, and this one was a man who had a protective order filed against him a week earlier, broke into his ex-girlfriend's home in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Once inside, the man attacked his ex-girlfriend, stabbing her. The woman's 11-year-old daughter responded to the attack by retrieving a pistol and shooting the attacker twice, ending the assault and prompting the criminal to flee. A neighbor told reporters that the wounded woman had just shown the little girl how to use the gun last week so she could protect herself. And this was on the 24th of September. So I chose these both because they both are situations where people may not possibly have been able to defend themselves against their attacker. Both situations were females who were able to subdue a male attacker. And in some cases, those male attackers could have been stronger and maybe would have got the better of them if that situation did not involve a firearm with these individuals protecting themselves. I think this is important to note. And also in the last one, this man, he had a protective order filed against him. This is a piece of paper, all right? This is a lawful order. This is a document showing that this guy can't make contact with this person. So did that stop this man from attacking his ex-girlfriend and stabbing her? Obviously not. And the question is, why didn't this piece of paper stop it? Why didn't that stop this violence, this attack from happening? Why did it get out of control? And the answer is that pieces of paper do not stop crime. What stops crime is armed citizens. That's what stops crime. And the fact is, and I've said it before, criminals, by definition, do not follow the law. What does it matter that there's a piece of paper on file somewhere saying that this person can't do something? It really doesn't matter. These people will not follow the law. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun or a weapon, or in a situation where the other person can't defend themselves, is to have a good guy with a gun. That is how you stop crime. That's how you deter crime. I think it's really important, and I think this segment. This is why it's my favorite segment of the show, because it really does illustrate how many times people use their firearms every year to defend themselves. There was a study conducted by a university in Florida where I believe it said around 2.5 million times a year Americans use their firearms to defend themselves. 2.5 million times a year. The gun grabbers, the anti-gun extremists, they would like you to believe that, and that's all they do is the anti-gun grabbers would like you to believe that the only thing that guns are used for is crime. That's it. That's all they want you to believe. They want you to think that this is an evil device. This is only for evil. But the case is damning against that argument, honestly, because when you look at the statistics, vast more people, the vast majority of people use firearms to defend themselves rather than to commit crimes. This is just a fact. This is statistics. Don't believe me? Look it up. Type in to your Google search engine or whatever one you use, type in Florida University study about defensive gun use. You will find a bunch of articles. I looked through a dozen of them, and 2.5 million times a year people use firearms to defend themselves, to prevent crime, to deter crime. And as I've said before, it is entirely impossible for us to even determine how many times crimes have been stopped just from the mere presence of somebody with a firearm, an open carrier. We have no way of knowing when somebody was about to commit a crime, but they saw somebody with a gun, and it deterred them from even starting whatever illegal activity they were going to do. So, the statistics for gun deaths and violence in the United States, it's staggering. There's quite a lot of gun violence in the United States. However, you have to take into account where this violence is actually happening. First and foremost, look at the places with the most extreme gun laws: Chicago, D.C., California. They all just so happen to be the murder capitals of the United States. They have the most gun violence. They have the most deaths from criminals using guns. This is why we're seeing it because they're taking the guns out of the law-abiding citizens' hands that can be used to stop the crimes in the first place, to deter the crimes. You know, a criminal wants a soft target, an easy target. They don't want to have a firefight. They're going to move along. If they think that there's a chance that they could be involved in a firefight, or if there's somebody that can defend themselves, 9 times out of 10 a criminal is going to move along to an easier target. And this is what we are seeing. This is why gun violence is higher in these areas like California, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, because these citizens have no ability to defend themselves, and the criminals know it. The criminals know that these people that they're preying on have no ability to protect themselves. And again, the criminals, they don't follow the law, so they have guns, but the only people that don't are the people that you didn't need to worry about in the first place, the people that weren't going to use these guns in violent crime because they were law-abiding citizens. Anybody who would follow the law not to have a firearm is, in fact, a law-abiding citizen, meaning they are less likely to use that firearm in a crime. I mean, it is common sense, and the argument against guns, the argument for gun control, it's illogical, and it doesn't make sense, especially when you're comparing the statistics. Even if you are saying and admitting to the fact that all the numbers which they portray out there, which are incredibly false, the Bloomberg and the other anti-gunners out there, they have loved to just cook the books on these kind of statistics and say that gun violence is worse than it really is. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt that the statistics that they're giving are accurate, which they're not, because they include accidental discharges, and they also include people who committed suicide. Those are in the statistics that they're using as well. They're cooking the books. But let's just say, given what they say is true, you know, the numbers for gun violence is under 100,000 a year, even including this. Okay, far, far under 100,000 deaths in the United States. So, you know, I believe the last time I looked it was somewhere around 40,000. I could be wrong, but don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. Either way, let's say it was at 100,000. 2.5 million times a year, Americans use their firearms to defend themselves. How many people would have died if they didn't have a firearm in those situations? There's no way to know. The fact is, though, 2.5 is vastly bigger than even 100,000, which they're not even saying it's 100,000 deaths from gun violence a year. So, anyway, that's my take on it. I love hearing personally. I love it when I hear about law-abiding citizens using their firearms to protect themselves. You know, you have a right to defend your life. You have a right to defend your family, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We at On The Move, we support your rights, and if you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself, or you'd like to comment on one of these stories, we would love to hear from you. Give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to have D.S. Edwards on the line. I think this is him calling in. And we're going to talk about his book and the state of America. So don't go anywhere. You do not want to miss this.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Worley III.
All right, well, we're back. If you want to join in today's conversation, please give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and we'll read your emails live on the air. Anyway, at this point, we're joined by D.S. Edwards, author of the book Collective Retribution, and I'm very excited to have you on the phone today, Mr. Edwards. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. I love your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I got to say, first and foremost, I am a huge fan. I'm super excited right now to have you on the show. And I read your book. You provided me with a copy of it, and I love it. I cannot speak highly enough about it. And by the way, for our listeners, for those of you who would like to get a copy of his book, we'll be putting, at the end of today's show, we're going to be putting it on our shop link, a link off of Amazon. It's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to track it down and link it on there. So if anybody wants to get it, they can buy it from our Amazon affiliate store, and it just links off there. There is no additional cost or anything. You get the same price that you pay on Amazon to buy it off of there. So anyway, so I want to ask, Mr. Edwards, what got you into writing in the first place?
Well, I've always kind of been a fan of writing, and I never feel more alive than when I'm sitting there penning a word. I have to excuse me, I've got a cold today, so no, it's not Ebola. I'm pretty sure it's not Ebola, but I got a cold today, so I'm kind of nasally. But no, I've always been interested in writing. I think where the book came from, it was born from tragedy. My wife's little sister was murdered by an illegal alien, it's been about 10 years ago. And he had been deported several different times, and on his fourth deportation, he came back across the wide-open southern border and decided that he'd recruit an impressionable young man and went up to an apartment building that she lived in, and she happened to be upstairs doing laundry at the neighbor's apartment. Well, the neighbors owed this particular scumbag $47 for meth. So he recruited this impressionable young man, and the young man went up, knocked on the door, and the husband answered the door, and he shot him in the face and walked in and shot the wife in front of the stove. She actually lived, but shot her in the head, and then walked into the living room and actually emptied the rest of the 9mm into my sister-in-law. So, I was bothered by the illegal immigration problem, the wide open border problem, and I wanted to make a difference. So I wrote the book, and most of the tragedy and most of the disaster in the book takes place because of the wide open southern border. So that's really why I wrote the book.
So is this the first book that you've written then?
Yeah, this is the first book. I've actually started book 2. It's going to be a 3-book series. I've actually started book 2, and I'm looking at about 12 to 18 months for completion of that.
All right, man. I'm so excited. I didn't know it was going to be a trilogy. So I gotta ask you, do you know how it's going to end already?
I kind of have an idea, but I kind of let the cat out of the bag in the epilogue in the first book. But there's a lot of story between where the first book ends and the epilogue. So that's what the next 2 books will take place, is between the end of the first story and the epilogue in the first book.
Okay, so for our listeners, those who have not read the book or know anything about it whatsoever, can you give basically like a little synopsis of what it's about?
It is where we're at. I mean, it's kind of scary to me, some of the things that have came true since I wrote the book. I mean, first and foremost being the Ebola crisis right now, and the report from DHS about possibility of the terrorists actually infecting themselves and using themselves as a bioweapon. And that's just one of the things I wrote. Basically, it's, the country is in disarray, which it is now. There's a different type of rule in the country. It's marching towards socialism, marching towards, dictator-type rule, and we're attacked. We're wide open, we're not defending ourselves, and we're attacked, and basically the entire United States is thrown back into the dark ages, and we have to learn how to survive on our own with no modern conveniences whatsoever, and then there's a subsequent revolution and so on and so forth. There's a lot of post-apocalyptic type books out there, but most of the time what they're fighting against is one another. They have groups, so on and so forth. Really what this book deals with is the political ramifications of a collapsed America. And really I don't think we're going to be fighting amongst one another. I think we're going to be fighting an oppressive government if things collapse like they do in the book.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I really thought that was interesting. Obviously, a lot of what you wrote was rather prophetic, considering what has been transpiring in our country right now with Ebola and things like that. It's very very crazy that in this situation you've got terrorists that you're concerned about, and then the viral aspect of it as well. But then at the same time you've got threats from your own government, and then even worse, I think, is how people are turning upon each other, and it becomes a survival of the fittest kind of scenario, and basic concepts and laws in society are just cast to the wayside because people are trying to do what they can to survive, and people preying on one another and people looking out for one another. I just think it's a great story of humanity, and man, I fell in love with it. Up until recently, I wasn't really that big of a reader, and within the last year, I started picking up books, and your book in particular, I got to thank you because you really inspired me to do a whole lot more reading. I picked that book up and I could not put it down. I plowed through that book in like a week, and that's crazy for me. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's really why you write. I mean, that's what you want as a writer. Yeah, you want to make money, but you just want people to like what you do, and I wanted to make a difference. So if it got you to think and it gets others to think, and possibly we can turn the corner before the scenario that plays out in the book actually happens, then I did my job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you have succeeded in that. Because of your book, you've inspired me to do a lot more reading, and since then I got a stack of books that I've been plowing through. Since I read your book, I've probably read 6 different books now, and before that, I hadn't read a book in a whole book in its entirety, in probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, something like that. So thank you. I got to say, you've inspired me to do a whole lot more reading. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I have faith. I have faith in America, and I have faith in the people of America that if it gets to that point, I really believe they're going to step up and do the right thing.
Well, we can only hope. I think the faith that you're talking about is shared among our founders. Our founders expected us to be able to sort through the problems that they knew existed and knew that we would face. And Jefferson even he's quoted as saying that we'll have to put faith in the future generations to be able to solve these problems. And I think it says a lot about that generation and what they expected for the future, all the hope that they expected, and hoping that we'd be able to pick up the torch and carry on the fire of liberty. I think it's really awesome, the concept of we are who our founders were talking about. It's not going to be anybody else. Somebody has to do it. So who's going to pick up that torch? It's got to be people like you. It's got to be people like me. And I really hope and pray that this show will inspire people to stand up and actually fight for what they believe in. Do what they know to be right, and fight for liberty, and try to make sure that the ever expanding federal Leviathan is put in check eventually. So anyway, I want to ask particularly, what were some of your thought processes while writing this book? Like, did you have any kind of weird story tangents that you wanted to kind of take it down that you decided not to go, or anything like that?
Excuse me, kind of took on a mind of its own. It kind of became its own living organism as I was writing it. I actually set out to write a political thriller. I'm a big fan of Robert Ludlum and, that type of story, Clancy, that type of story. So that was the genre I actually set out to write. And, I wrote the first chapter, and it just kind of went somewhere I wasn't expecting. I don't know. A lot of people write, they'll have an outline and they'll have their characters all sketched out. I just sat down and opened up my laptop when I got on a plane and started writing, and that was the result 18 months later. So it kind of took on a mind of its own. So I could say it's not exactly what I expected it to be, but I'm blessed. I mean, it's doing really well. So I'm blessed that the response has been as positive as it has been.
That's awesome. Yeah, I cannot speak highly enough about your book. The one thing that to me that really stood out is the moment I opened the book. I mean, the first, I think it was the prologue of the book. The action started right away. It's so intense. The moment you crack the page open, it's got something going on. It is absolutely a thriller. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and that to me was the big reason. I could not put it down. At the end of every chapter, I'm like, oh, I got to find out what happens. I'll stop after this chapter. That was a big thing to me. And also, your chapters were small. I love that about what you did. Each chapter was only a couple of pages, and it was easy to breeze through. For me, when I get to the beginning of the first chapter, the very first thing I do when I get to a chapter is I flip through and see how many pages it is, and then I try to aim for a goal of what I'm going to read up to, So yours is just really easy for me to read through.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Ted Decker, and he does a lot of his books are really short, compact chapters as well. He does psychological thrillers. But, as you're reading a book, me as a reader, someone who just devoured books as a youth, I mean, I did the same thing. I'd see how long is this next chapter? Okay, can I make it through before I have to go to bed? And I found that the shorter the chapters, the more I would actually read. If it was a longer chapter, I'd read less. But the shorter chapter, I can make it through this next one. I can make it through this next one. And before I knew it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just wanted to keep reading. So that's kind of part of the reason I did the short chapters.
That is exactly what happened to me. I found myself, I was like, I'm only going to read for a half hour, so I got a little bit of time in my day, and then, at 45 minutes later, I'm like, I'll get to the next, to the next chapter. It's small. And I end up looking at the clock. It's been like 4 hours, and I'm like way behind on all my stuff I needed to get done because I've been just devouring this book. It's such an awesome book. It really makes you think, and the characters. I really started to attach to these characters, and I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, but man, you did a great job. You built this world that I connected with, and I felt connected to the characters, and you did an excellent job. I know I've said that about 50 times so far, but again, I'm a huge fan.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, the characters and the setting, I mean, it's not something I had to create. It's not a world that I actually had to create. It already exists. It's the world that I grew up in. It's the people that I grew up with. It's the mentality, the patriotic mentality, the traditional, American philosophy. So that's really what it was born from, and I didn't have to create a world. That world already exists, which gives me hope that when things do fall apart, there is a possibility. We can get it back. We can come back from the brink, and we can reestablish, America the way it was founded. And those people exist out there. There's more of them than what people realize. Especially people in the urban areas don't realize that those types of people are out there. So, they already exist.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of us out here that not only are gun owners, but even more who are very patriotic and believe in the founding principles of this country. Individualism and individual rights and small government, things like that. There's so many people out here, and the difficult part is waking people up who are not already involved in this kind of things, that don't already have these kind of critical thought processes going on, and that's what my show's about. I hope that your book will maybe open some people's eyes to potential problems that we may face, and then maybe they'll take action to prepare themselves and maybe take part in the political process. That way they can prevent this from even happening. In terms of emergency preparedness, and I don't know this about you or anything. I'm just curious. Based on your book, I kind of got a feel that perhaps you are into emergency preparedness a little bit. Is that true?
It's funny. I've done, oh my gosh, I don't know how many interviews, probably 20 interviews, and I always get asked that question, and the answer is always the same. I didn't even think about it when I started writing the book. I hadn't even thought about that in my own personal life as far as being a quote-unquote prepper or being prepared for disaster or being prepared for survival. But as the book took on its life and as it started to be born in front of me, it actually got me thinking. It actually got me starting to wonder and starting to be prepared. So, was I? No. Am I now? Well, yeah, I could probably say I am now just because of the book. So, yeah, I do have a few things that I've put aside, a few plans that I've put aside that we all should, as Americans, we should all think about.
Absolutely. And I say this all the time, but our grandparents, they were preppers. In World War II, the president literally asked the people to grow victory gardens to ease the demand on food supplies at grocery stores. And imagine this kind of request coming from this president or this administration. People would be like, "Are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. I'm not going to grow a garden." That's too much work, too much effort. I'll just go to the grocery store. But the fact is that most grocery stores only carry about a week or two worth of stock, or sometimes in a lot of cases up to like 3 days worth of supplies in the store of normal purchasing. So if there's an emergency, or natural disaster or terror attack or something like that, within 1 day, that 3-day supply that on average could be dwindled down to nothing within a few hours. And it's something that I don't think very many people understand, that there's no big giant warehouse in the back of grocery stores that are holding mountains and mountains of food. The food has to come in on trucks to resupply what has been expended. So the fact is, if something happened with the infrastructure, if a scenario like in your book happened, that within a few days, people are going to be at each other's throats trying to get scraps of food. So I think it's important that every single American, takes the time, expends a little bit of resources. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money to get, a little bit of food put away, just in case something happens. I think I was reading that a cup of rice and a cup of lentils will last will feed two adults. I mean, that's just a cup. It doesn't. That stuff is cheap. You could spend $50 in a grocery store and be able to feed your family for easily a couple of weeks. So, I think these are
it doesn't take much.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, these are really simple steps that I think people need to really think about, and I think that your book does a great job in illustrating that without even really saying it. It's like, hey, these are potential dangers. And I think most people, after reading your book, will get that impression, like, hey, this could happen, and it's something that maybe I should take some steps to doing. So anyway, I think it's a great job to maybe wake some people up to that fact and open some eyes. So anyway,
that's what I'm hoping.
We're gonna cut to a quick break real fast. When we get back, do you mind talking a little bit about the current state of America? And we're gonna basically talk about Ebola a little bit, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Are you okay with doing that?
Absolutely.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Don't.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LAGOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move.
back. When we last left, we had author D.S. Edwards on the line. He's talking about his book, Collective Retribution, which, by the way, at the end of this show, I'm going to go to our store and add it to OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link. It'll be in our Amazon affiliate store. I believe that's called the Gear Store on there. And you can find it in the book section. So feel free to take a look, see what you think. If you want to buy it, go ahead and buy it from there. It's up to you, but I'm sure he would appreciate it, and I love the book. I cannot speak highly enough about it. I know I've said that over and over again. Also, I just want to point out the fact that, it's been about, 36 minutes into the show here, and we have not had any technical difficulties, which is something that is a rarity these days. Typically, my Skype will mess up, and I'll drop connection. So if that happens this show, guys, I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to play a commercial, and I'll be right back because it only lasts for a few seconds. So anyway, we got D.S. Edwards back on the line. Are you there, sir?
I'm here.
All righty. So, I want to talk a little bit about, the state of America right now and, in regards to Ebola and some of the threats that we're facing right now and, the open border situation that we have where illegals are just flooding across, and we have, communicable diseases that are being transmitted by these people. What are your thoughts on this situation? Are you as nervous about it as I am?
Oh, it's an absolute mess. I mean, the borders, they've been wide open for a long time, but now it's just coming to the forefront. Now it's really, the danger of it is really starting to show more than what we even thought of before. And it doesn't seem like the current administration, cares. It's not. Well, I take that back. I would say that they wouldn't say that they don't care. I would almost think it was more nefarious than that. I would almost think that it's intentionally, we're intentionally being put in danger. And by saying that, I mean, if there is a crisis, possibly those who are in power might continue to hold that power a little bit longer. I never would have said that, 15 years ago, but I've never seen the complete disregard for the Constitution and the complete disregard for the citizens that I've seen with this current administration. So it kind of scares the crap out of me, actually.
Honestly, I think we're at a tipping point. It's been said by Jonathan Turley, which, by the way, Jonathan Turley is a liberal. He's a leftist, and he's a professor. He teaches Constitution stuff. I believe he teaches Constitution stuff, if I'm not mistaken. He's a lawyer, highly regarded, been in a lot of big cases. And even he said, we're at a constitutional tipping point. And though he agrees with a lot of the stuff that Obama is trying to do, he disagrees with the way that he's doing it unilaterally, just changing laws. He's being our first legislative and judicial president, where he's not only changing legislation, which is not his job. He doesn't have the authority to do that, but he's also being the judge of criminal situations, criminal cases that have yet to actually been hashed out in our judicial system. Like, for example, when he commented on the Trayvon Martin situation, he's like, this could have been me. This could have been my son. He doesn't have a son, but, for the point of optics, that's what he was trying to go for. He's basically trying to say that George Zimmerman was guilty when he wasn't. He was found innocent. And on top of that, Trayvon Martin, before all the facts are out in this situation, Trayvon Martin is perceived as this innocent kid, just walking down the street, and all of a sudden he's shot, when in fact he's on top of George Zimmerman, pounding him into the pavement, basically, MMA style. And, this man was afraid for his life. Maybe he shouldn't have followed this kid around. But regardless, our president should not jump to conclusions before all the facts are in. And it's scary. I mean, it's scary the fact that he's openly saying he's going to bypass Congress. It's really incredible. And I believe that you're right as far as nefarious intent. And your book kind of touches on this as well, as far as how crises can be used to expand governmental power. And I think we're in this situation, the constitutional tipping point, where the government is just building and building and getting more and more power. Does this kind of stuff, are there any other situations that you see and you're kind of concerned about as well regarding that?
Well, yeah, not just Trayvon, but, Ferguson, look what happened in Ferguson. Look what happened in Massachusetts where the police acted stupidly. I mean, he's putting his 2 cents in where they don't belong. He's ginning up his base. He's causing division. He's causing strife, and it's all on purpose. I mean, a nation divided is easier to control. If your electorate is divided, it's easier to control the electorate. And the uninformed electorate really drives policy in America. It's not the informed person who understands what's happening and who keeps their eye on politics and the political climate, and they understand, what the role of the legislators are, what the role of the courts is, what the role of the commander-in-chief is. It's not them that drive policy, it's the uninformed electorate. And I think if you keep that uninformed electorate, busy with trivial crap, it's easier to control them. If they're uninformed, they don't know any better, and they'll support you more. So I think it's intentional. I really, really do. I never thought I'd say that. Somebody told me once that they thought he was the dumbest president that ever lived. And I said, no, you know what I think? Honestly, I think he might possibly be the smartest enemy America's ever faced.
I feel like he's definitely infiltrated and came in under promises of what he would do and things that he was going to change and things like that. And at the same time, he was also very general, hope and change. That doesn't really tell you what kind of change that he's going to do. But, I mean, his words was that he was going to fundamentally transform America, and we're seeing the fruit of his labors. This is what he's worked to do. And I don't know how the leftist, statist, communist, progressives, socialist, Marxist, I don't have any clue how they didn't understand that what that actually meant to fundamentally transform America. I mean, this is a country that has literally lifted the most people than any other country out of poverty, protected individual rights, and the fact that you would like to fundamentally change this country, that's scary. Yeah, I mean, that's not very American. That's not patriotic. To literally say that, and he came in under the guise of, as you said, everybody's divided, right? It's black versus white, old versus young, women versus men. That everything is divided. But he came under the guise that he was going to bring America together and build these bridges across all these communities to make America stronger and better. But what have we seen since he's taken office? He has literally been a divisive force in this country. His involvement in the Trayvon Martin situation has sparked a whole situation with race riots and things like that, and race debate. I feel like now Americans are more divided than they have ever been thanks to this president.
Yeah, no, it's true, and it's those of us who understand or understood what he was saying, and those of us who bothered to do the research on the man before he was elected, understood exactly what he was saying. It wasn't, he didn't hide it. He didn't lie about it. He came right out and told us what he was going to do. And, we allowed it to happen. I mean, those of us who paid attention allowed that to happen. But you got to think America, it's not just about America or the destruction of America. Dinesh said it really well. I mean, I don't know if you saw his movie America, but I mean, what would the world look like without America? And it's true. I mean, America has been, I even have a quote in my book, America really is the nation, is the glue that holds the entire world together. Without America, this world is in a world hurt. I mean, this world is going to completely fall apart without America. And as we get weaker, and as our dollar gets weaker, and as everything gets weaker, and we get have less influence in the world, there's going to be more and more and more chaos. We've got to strengthen America in order for the world to be a stronger world.
Exactly. And it's not only the threats that we face internally from an ever expanding governmental organization or administrations that are rewriting laws and using crises and things like that to gain their power. We also face external threats like the Islamo-Nazi movement that I've been talking about the past few shows, and also we see Russia, who's becoming more and more of an imminent threat to our security. And it seems like we're getting weaker and weaker. I was looking at reports on America's strength. We as a military, we have a really weak military now. We have all these technological advances, But at the same time, we're cutting the budget. We're getting rid of some of our advances, like I think it was Scud missiles or Patriot missiles, something like that. That we're removing a bunch of these missiles from our ships. We're also basically shrinking the size of our Navy. Our military is like crazy small. We're talking pre-World War I numbers, where we were caught with our pants down, basically. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that you have to have a decent, with these kind of threats anyway, you have to have a decent-sized military trained and ready to go. You can't count on a draft to bolster your numbers, because it'll take at least 6 months to a year to get troops combat ready, and that's just with minimal training, not specialized skill like special ops and things like that. So we're literally here with our pants down, and what do we see? We see Russia that's building up their military. They actually have more numbers in their military than us. China has crazy more numbers than us. I believe even North Korea has a bigger army than we do. This is outrageous. It's insane that we're not taking these kind of threats seriously, and we're shrinking our military while all these threats externally are growing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that goes back to the uninformed electorate. I mean, they don't understand what's at stake. Their entire world consists of, hey, the new iPhone 6 is coming out. Awesome, I'm going to go get the new iPhone 6. Hey, I can blog. I can, play games with my friends. I have my technology, and that's what their entire world consists of. They don't see the danger. They don't feel the threat. They have no idea what's at stake or what's coming, and that's the problem. That's where we've had such an issue in our society, and it starts in the education system. I mean, they're not being taught anymore. They don't know our history. They don't know anything about the founding fathers. They don't know anything about the principles that our country was founded on. I mean, even left and right about, the Constitution being actually changed in schools. I mean, I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was that textbook that the dad got a hold of talking about the Second Amendment. And it said, in order for the country to have organized militias, then the militias are allowed to keep guns. I mean, they actually changed the Second Amendment in this guy's textbook. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is educating the people. And I'm really hoping with shows like yours and people like our mutual friend Leo Stratton out there, doing the citizen journalism, and Dan Sandini and, Daylight Disinfectant, and people like me that write, I'm really hoping that we can make a difference and we can inform in other ways, because the traditional way of informing and teaching our youth is gone. I mean, that's over. That's done. So I'm really hoping that we can all make a difference in the best way that we know how. And if we can reach one person who can reach one person who can reach one person, then our job's done.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it has to start from a grassroots movement. The education cannot be dependent on our government to teach us what our rights are, what the Constitution says. The Department of Education, for example, it's a federal department. It doesn't help them to teach you what your rights are. It doesn't help them in any way to educate you on what they cannot do to you. So the best thing, it actually behooves them to keep you in the dark, keep you ignorant, and not knowing or understanding what the government can do, or even the internal functions, responsibilities of each branch of the government. It's important for them to keep you in the dark, because why would they want to teach you what they can and can't do? And you were talking about Common Core as far as the revisionist history and the changing of the Second Amendment. That was a Common Core booklet that was for elementary school aged students. All right, and this is Common Core approved civics and government instructional booklet, and that booklet said, and I'm looking at a picture of it right now here. It says the Second Amendment. This amendment states that people have the right to certain weapons, providing that they register them and they have not been in prison. The Founding Fathers included this amendment to prevent the United States from acting like the British, who had tried to take their weapons away from colonists. And that's not even in the Second Amendment at all. It doesn't say anything about registering them. It has absolutely nothing to do with them being in prison, which, by the way, that part was actually put in there in the early 1900s. They started to do that. Back in the day, you could get out of prison and get your gun back. There was nothing wrong with that. And personally, I don't really see a problem with it. If you're going to let the person out of prison in the first place, you're saying that they're rehabilitated and that they have paid their debt to society. But if they have actually paid their debt to society, then why are we still treating them like sub citizens? That they're a secondary class citizen if they have in fact paid their debt. If they're no longer a threat, let's give them back their guns. And if they are a threat, let's not let them out of jail to begin with.
Exactly.
It seems to me that they're just creating more and more ubiquitous legislation that is making us all felons to the point of where you can't even carry anymore. The gun laws that they're passing, the gun control, they're making it so hard to know the laws. You can cross not even state lines. You can cross from one county to another one, and I'm sure being that I think you're from Oregon. Is that right?
Yeah.
So in Oregon, Multnomah County has a ordinance that in order to open carry a firearm, you have to have a concealed carry permit. And it's not like that in most other places in the state, but you can cross over open carrying lawfully in another county. You cross over into this county, and now suddenly you violated the law. I believe it's a felony, if I'm not mistaken. And not to mention, the laws are so big and vast that no one American could possibly know every single law. So you could be potentially, all of us could be violating several laws right now and be felons if we were caught violating a law that we didn't even know about. And we're being told that, ignorance is no excuse for violating a law, but that doesn't apply to our legislators who violate the law continuously, and then they act like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, not only just the legislation and the laws, but, plain old rules and regulations. We're being regulated to death in this country. There's things that are against the law that were never laws on the books. They're just regulations. They're just red tape. Look at everything that came out of the healthcare law. Look at everything that came out of that, and look at what's happening with the EPA. All the regulations and all the things that they're instituting, they become the law of the land. Yet the citizens never had a say in it. So I think that's one way they found around the law and around the way the United States was set up as a constitutional republic is by instituting regulations, and I think we're being regulated to death.
Yes, sir. I could not agree more with you. It's really crazy at how much the federal government has expanded, how much access they have to our lives, how much control that they have. They can just kick in your door, no knock warrants, and you have to just comply, submit, let them search through your stuff. Every day police violate people's civil rights, and these people don't even know that their rights are being violated in some cases, many cases. It's really incredible at how much the government has grown, how much influence they have, and it just blows me away that statists just expect the government to protect them. They want to stay on the teat of the government and hope to God that the government doesn't do anything wrong, or they don't even think about it in regards to that. But as Ronald Reagan said, I believe it was Reagan, a government that can give you anything you want can also take away everything you have, and that's a concept people don't seem to understand nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think and we're in such danger. Go back to the Ebola thing. Good golly, I cannot believe that we haven't suspended all direct flights from Liberia. We've still got direct flights coming into Kennedy, and just willing. Why have we not, suspended those flights? Why have we not taken steps to prevent this from happening? And we've just scratched the surface of what's going to happen with this.
Absolutely. And, our government tells us their rationale for this is that, suspending flights will hinder the process of trying to actually fight this virus. But that to any logical person would seem ridiculous. Any person that actually would think about it, how could preventing flights from coming into our country, stop us fighting the virus? This is crazy. And we're one of the only countries that are civilized and trying to stop this virus that haven't done this. I believe Britain has closed their airports, and let me see. I think Air France suspended their flights as well. It's unbelievable that we have yet to do this, and I think it goes even further to illustrate the point of it being nefarious. You know, if they didn't want it to spread, why haven't they stopped air traffic coming out of these hot zones?
Yeah, and you think about it. I think about this sometimes. What if the ultimate plan is to have that mass chaos? What if the ultimate plan is to have a crisis so deep, so profound, so widespread that the only choice at that point is to declare some sort of martial law? What would happen if that were to take place, a month prior to the 2016 elections? What would happen? Well, we can't have elections because people are quarantined. People can't get out. People can't vote. Well, I guess I'm going to have to stay in office a little bit longer.
Yeah. And not even just that. I mean, he could pass an executive order that there's some kind of emergency going on, and he's going to suspend elections until it's all sorted out. And as we know that these temporary laws, things that are wartime powers or emergency powers that are supposed to have sunsets on them, they're supposed to go away after a period of time, like the Patriot Act. They don't go away. Once it's there, it's there. Unless we actively fight it and resist it and change the law or kick him out of office and get somebody in who's going to respect their oath of office, that we're going to continue to have that stuff on the books. And I mean, it's not a stretch. It really isn't a conspiracy theory or a stretch to think that the government could put some kind of executive order out there or legislation preventing elections due to an emergency or something. And
look at all the temporary programs that FDR started. The temporary jobs programs. Well, let's throw the United States Forest Service under the Department of Agriculture out there as one of those temporary jobs programs. Has that went away? No, that hasn't went away, and now our public lands are no longer public. I mean, any temporary program that the government starts, it doesn't go away. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you feed it more, and it gets bigger, and it just doesn't go away. So there's no such thing as a temporary program in the federal government.
Absolutely. Yeah, the federal Leviathan, it's ever expanding. It just keep building on itself. And these bureaucracies that are put into place, they're not put in there for the betterment of society or to ensure security. Their number one priority, the number one priority of all bureaucracies, is to protect and expand the bureaucracy. That's it. That's the only thing they really care about. So anyway, we're going to cut to one more commercial break. And would you mind sticking around one more time? I want to give a little bit more time to talk some about your book, and it will probably be like another 5 or 10 minutes. You cool with that?
No problem. Yeah, I can stick around.
Okay. All right. We'll be right back, guys. We're going to be back with more with D.S. Edwards. Do not go anywhere, and if you want to join the conversation, you got a question for him or myself, please feel free to give us a call. The number of the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, we'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
We're back. When we last left, we had D.S. Edwards. He's the author of the book Collective Retribution on the line. And we've been talking about the state of America, Ebola, the ever-expanding federal Leviathan. We've talked about his book as well. Anyway, I got him on the line. If you guys would like to join the conversation, again, the number to the show is 619-924-0986. So, Mr. Edwards, I'm curious. Do you have like a Facebook page, a website, Twitter, something like that for my listeners to find more about you guys, get updates about your new book?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook at Collective Retribution. You can follow me on Twitter at DS Edwards Author. You can check out my website at dsedwardsbooks.com or collectiveretribution.com. You can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, hardcover, paperback, all e-formats. And yeah, if you end up getting the book, go back and leave me a review and let me know what you thought of it. I read every single one. I stay up late at night pouring over the reviews, so I like to hear from people.
All right, well, you just inspired me to go write your review. I'm going to give you a 5-star on that one. I love your book. So, like I said, I'm so excited about the next one, and now that I know it's a trilogy, that's awesome. You gave me a lot to look forward to here. So, if you could, this is mostly for me, but I guess, this would benefit the audience as well. Could you give us a little teaser, just a little taste of what the next book is going to be about?
Well, the next book takes place same time frame as the first, a lot with rural America and what takes place in rural America after the U.S. collapses. The next book is actually going to take place in the urban setting. It's actually set in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so it's one of the cities that wasn't destroyed. And it's going to deal a lot with what's going to happen in the urban areas if something like this scenario plays out. There'll be a lot of racial tension. There'll be a lot of hatred, a lot of violence. So, it's I'm not a violent person, but that's reality, and that's what would happen. So that's kind of what takes place in the second book. And then the third book, I'm going to bring, both areas back together and try and rebuild the country in the third book.
Oh, man, I'm so excited right now. This is going to be awesome. So anyway, make sure you check out his stuff, guys. And again, I'm going to put his link to his book on our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link. It's going to be in the gear store in the book section. I know that was a lot of instructions, but if you guys want to find it on there, or you can just go to Amazon and search it yourself. And it's Collective Retribution. And thanks so much, D.S. Edwards, for coming on the show. It was amazing having you on, and I hope that you're willing to come back again someday and talk about your next book. Or anything else you guys got going on over there. And again, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me anytime.
All right, it was a pleasure. Take care. All right, guys, we're going to cut to another commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to enter into the next segment of the show. We'd like to call it the Mack Attack.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
We are into the second hour of the broadcast, and again, I sure do appreciate you guys for tuning in today. I'm Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. When we last left, we had author D.S. Edwards on the line. He's the author of the book Collective Retribution, an amazing book, incredible thriller, easy to read, so fun, and very enlightening. It'll make you think. And, man, I'm not getting paid to promote his book or anything, unless you buy it from the Amazon affiliate store. But, again, you could just go to Amazon.com and buy it off of there. On the affiliate store, we get a small percentage of the cost or whatever for referring you guys to the link or whatever. So if you want to support the program, you can do that there. But either way, it really doesn't matter to me. Buy the book any way you can. Go to the store. Do it on Amazon. It doesn't matter to me. Just read the book. It's a great book. I love this book. I cannot speak highly enough about it. And, again, I want to thank D.S. Edwards for joining us today. And I'm telling you, this has been an absolute pleasure for me to have him on the show. So, anyway, I have a message that I was sent here on Facebook, and it's asking me to support a petition that has yet to been published, and it's designed to be humane and end flights for non-emergency staff and for anyone wanting to come home from these infected areas such as Liberia. And, I haven't had an opportunity, and I don't have an opportunity right now to look over this. I will definitely look at this, and I support any kind of action that we can take to prevent this virus from spreading here in America. I think it should have been done a long, long time ago. There's no reason why we are bringing people in from these infected areas when a lot of other countries have already closed down the traffic coming out of these areas. We have a situation right now where it's dangerous enough as it is. The virus itself has made it to American soil, which has never happened in our history. This virus, Ebola, has never been in the United States, and yet we're being told not to panic, be okay. It's everything's all right. The government will take care of you. Don't worry about it. And again, this is something that is disturbing to me personally. Anytime I'm told not to panic, don't worry, I instantly think something's going on that I should probably panic about. And I'm not a big panicker myself. I don't get overly worried. I'm not very excitable. My personality, I'm pretty calm. I'm a calm guy. So when I say I panic, I'm not really panicking. I'm seeing that, okay, maybe I should take some steps to protect myself and my family. Simple things that I can do. Emergency preparedness is one of those things. I do that myself. I have put away a little bit. I have food, not a ton. I haven't done anything crazy, but I think it's important that we all take the time to actually take steps to keep ourselves a little less dependent on the government in an emergency. FEMA, for example, the Emergency Management Agency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they are not designed to protect and extract every single American in an emergency, and they don't have the capability. That was not their intention. That's not even what they're able to physically do. And to be honest, I would be hesitant to even get any kind of help from FEMA, considering the kind of dangers that you're exposing yourself to. You're relying solely, if you go to a FEMA camp or something, you'd be relying solely on the government to protect you, which I don't think that the government can do, and I also don't think that the government has any interest of doing. Not to mention the government is incredibly inept. You're relying on bureaucrats to protect you, which I think is inherently just a silly decision. These people are not looking out for your best interest. So take steps. Do something to protect yourself and your loved ones. Get a little bit of extra food. Rice, lentils, beans. I'm not saying stockpile loads of ammunition and guns, but hey, go more power to you if you want to do that. But make sure that you have the ability to be a little self-reliant. Have a plan. Have somewhere that you already know if you have to leave, you can go to. Have a plan as far as what you plan on taking. In a situation where it's a mass evacuation, the highways within a couple of minutes are going to be action-packed, jammed up. There's going to be no commuting around. you have to really be careful. All right? So you have to have a plan. If you're going to leave, you need to leave within 5 minutes. That means that you have to have something already prepared, a bag, a car that's already stocked with things that you're planning on taking. And if you're not going within 5 minutes, then you're not going anywhere. And even if you are, if your place that you're planning on going is, across the highway for, a half hour or more, I mean, you're not going to make it there. If you don't have a back road at, a place that you're going to go or something that's relatively close by, you might as well just hole up unless you have absolutely no choice. Your best bet is to get out of there before everyone else starts thinking about even coming onto the roads, because you don't want to be, leaving the shelter and safety of your home and then end up stuck in traffic. Who knows what could happen at that point. And you're exposing yourself to all sorts of dangers. And I see that we had a caller on the line. I'm sorry I didn't get to you. I saw you just dropped off. If you want to call us back, go right ahead. I'll put you on the line. I'm sorry I didn't get to you in time. But anyway, we're going to enter into the next segment of the show, and we like to call it the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
All right, this is a segment of the show where I talk about outrageous events in the news. And we've pretty much covered a lot of this here, but I want to really deep dive on it and give you my analysis on the subject of Ebola. I think it's significant. The threat that we face is extremely significant. I think it's important that we all at least know what we're facing. What threat is this? Why am I even concerned about Ebola? As far as the CDC and this administration is concerned, it's a non-issue. It's a non-threat. So why am I not taking their word for this? Well, obviously, it's a deadly virus, and one thing I find particularly disturbing about this virus is that it has a 21-day incubation period. 21-day. So somebody could be sick, infected with this deadly virus, and not show any symptoms for 3 weeks. Unbelievable. That to me has got to be the scariest part about this virus. So somebody could be sick, infecting all their loved ones, neighbors, coworkers, people at the gym, because it's transferred through bodily fluids such as sweat as well. So imagine somebody's sick, they're working out in the gym, touching all the equipment, they're getting it all over, their sweat all over everything, and somebody comes by behind them and touches something. Now they've got their sweat on them, and oh boom, now you've got it. And you didn't even know you came into contact with anybody. It was indirect. And by the way, I got to point out the fact that this virus, the Ebola virus, can stay alive for up to 6 days on sterile surfaces. 6 days. So, and I want to talk about this gym scenario that I'm talking about. I think this is a crazy, frightening situation, because most gyms nowadays, they have a little cleanser thing that you spray on the equipment and you wipe down. But what they're not accounting for, and what I've never seen anyone do ever, is wipe down like barbells or things that you grab with your hands. And your hands, as we all know, sweat. They perspire a lot. Not to mention they carry a ton of our bacteria from coughing and viruses and stuff like that. So, it's a real danger, even just going to the gym. I don't want to give you guys a reason not to go work out or something, but I'm just saying that's something that you should all keep in mind, is that, somebody could cough in their hands, touch a piece of gym equipment or a barbell or dumbbell or something like that, and now it not only from them coughing or just the sweat from their hands, you could touch that, and then now it's on your hands, one of the places where you're most likely to get that disease transferred to your face, your mouth, things like that, touch your food, eat it. It's really incredible at the dangers that we face with this. So I want to just also point out the fact that the Ebola virus, it kills between 50 and 90% of its victims. And like I said, the U.S. government, they have done nothing to stop the air traffic coming in and out of the countries such as Liberia that have Ebola. And according to theblaze.com, in late August, Air France suspended flights to countries with Ebola with the Ebola virus outbreaks. And one of those airlines was British Airways. They halted flights to 2 West African countries hit by the Ebola virus. I can't read right now. Hit by the Ebola virus until the end of the year. And also, many in Congress, including Senator Ted Cruz, are wondering if similar action should be taken by these airlines in the United States. Despite concerns and public outcry on Friday, the White House said banning flights between the U.S. and the region could hurt efforts to contain and fight the outbreak. This is scary. I mean, we see right now our government is literally allowing people who are sick to come into the country knowingly. We see people who went to the hospital saying, "Oh, I'm bleeding from every orifice and I'm vomiting and I have all these symptoms," and they're being sent home on their way. "Oh, hey, take a pill here. No big deal. You're good to go. Go back out there." And the unmitigated risk here that there's really no real action being taken to prevent this from happening. And even the cleanup process. This individual that went to the hospital, he vomited in a parking lot several times, and people out there that were cleaning it up were just spraying it away, washing it down the drain. Who knows where that virus is going to end up? What it contaminated. It's scary. It really is scary. Anyway, I got a clip here from the CDC talking about the potential of how many people could have possibly been infected so far. Here's a clip.
As of the end of the day yesterday, we had assessed 114 people who may or may not have had exposure to the patient. At this point, we have identified, in conjunction with folks on the ground in Texas, 9 individuals who we're pretty sure are definite contacts with the source patient, with the index case, as we refer to him. In addition, there are about 40 other people, and the numbers may change by 1 or 2 per day, that we can't rule out had contact. We don't know that they had contact, but because we're not certain that they did not have contact, we will be monitoring them as well.
So they're going to monitor it's possibly up to 40 people. The numbers have changed consistently here over the past few days since this report from the CDC. And there's talks about up to 40 people that have been exposed to this. And who knows how many people have really been exposed because of the 3-week incubation period. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Imagine how many people you come into contact with during a 3-week period. How many things that you touch that after you touch, people touch after you. It's insane at how quickly this virus can spread. And here's Obama. He's talking about what they're doing here and how the U.S. is prepared to fight Ebola.
This is something that we take very seriously. As soon as there's an outbreak anywhere in the world of any disease that could have significant effects, the CDC is in communication with the World Health Organization and other multilateral agencies to try to make sure that we've got an appropriate response. This has been a more aggressive Ebola outbreak than we've seen in the past, but keep in mind that it is still affecting parts of 3 countries, and we've got some 50 countries represented at this summit. We are doing 2 things. With respect to the summit itself, we're taking the appropriate precautions. Folks who are coming from these countries that have even a marginal risk or an infinitesimal risk of having been exposed in some fashion, we're making sure we're doing screening on that end as they leave the country. We'll do additional screening when we're here. We feel confident that the procedures that we've put in place are appropriate. More broadly, the CDC and our various health agencies are going to be working very intently with the World Health Organization and some of our partner countries to make sure that we can surge some resources down there and organization to these countries that are pretty poor and don't have a strong public health infrastructure so that we can start containing the problem. Keep in mind that Ebola is not something that is easily transmitted. That's why generally outbreaks dissipate.
Something to be said about this here. He's telling you that it's not easily transmitted. Well, physical contact, contact with bodily fluids such as sweat, saliva, blood, vomit, things of that nature. That is what exposes, that they're saying anyway, exposes people to the Ebola virus. There is some debate on this, and we'll get into this in a second here about other ways to communicate this disease. But again, they're telling you that it's not easy to contract this virus. This is a method that they're using here to make it so you're not concerned with the spread of this virus. Oh, it's hard to get. This is downplaying the severity of this situation. Here he goes with some more.
But the key is identifying, quarantining, isolating those who contract it, and making sure that practices are in place that avoid transmission. And it can be done, but it's got to be done in an organized, systematic way, and that means that we're going to have to help these countries accomplish that.
Okay, he's saying it can be done if we identify and quarantine individuals quick enough. Well, okay, 21-day incubation period, everyone. 6 days this virus can stay alive on sterile surfaces. 6 days. So somebody could touch something and leave the area for 6 whole days, and you could just walk by and touch it, and then suddenly now you're contracted with the virus, and you have a 21-day incubation period. We're not screening passengers that are coming over from these infected areas. We're not even testing their blood to see if they have the virus. I mean, they can test this and find out relatively quickly that you have it in your blood. It only takes a couple of minutes from what I'm told. So none of these procedures are being put in place. We haven't stopped air traffic. It is scary at how little they seem to be concerned about this. Anyway, I have another clip here when they're talking about I believe this is CNN that reported on the first individual, the first American to ever set foot on American soil with the Ebola virus. Here it is.
The fight to keep American Dr. Kent Brantley alive is now in the hands of infectious disease experts at Atlanta's Emory Hospital. The 33-year-old Brantley, a missionary with Samaritan's Purse, made the long journey from Liberia to the United States in a specially equipped jet.
I'm worried about him, yeah, I am, but he'll be okay regardless.
After nearly 6,000 miles, 14 hours in the air, Brantley touched down Saturday morning in Atlanta, but not before a brief refueling in Bangor, Maine. He is the first known Ebola patient on U.S. soil. I spoke with Dr. Bruce Ribner, one of the leading physicians overseeing Brantley's care. He says there was never a question of bringing the 2 Americans who contracted Ebola to Emory. They were ready for them.
Why take the risk at all? I think you've been in that part of the world, and you know the level of care that can be delivered. These are Americans who went over there to supply a humanitarian mission of medical care for these individuals. And our feeling is that they deserve the best medical care to try and resolve this infection that they can get.
By early Saturday afternoon, Brantley was transferred from his isolation on board the plane into an ambulance on the tarmac. Then a caravan took to the streets of Atlanta, where his every move was tracked by air and ground. Awaiting him at the hospital, a specially outfitted containment unit, one of only several in the world.
What sort of message do you have for folks at home, general public, that are concerned about having an American with the Ebola virus here in their backyard?
I think that's the key point, that this is not a virus. This is a patient. This is one of our neighbors. This is a parent. This is a child. This is a spouse. This is a sibling. It's a sick person who needs our help.
The other American missionary, Nancy Wrightball, is awaiting her trip back to the United States as well. Around 12:30 Saturday afternoon, about an hour after the plane landed at Dobbins Air Force Base, it was back in the air, and she's expected to join her colleague at Emory early next week. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN, Atlanta.
And this report was actually done, I believe it was at the beginning of August. So since then, I believe this woman has actually joined her colleague in the United States. And who knows how many people have been subject to this infection. Who knows what could have possibly happened. We don't know. And why would we risk bringing these individuals to America when this virus has never, ever, in the history of the world, made it to the United States? It's never been here. Never. So we brought it here. And they're saying that, there's no way that they could have gotten medical help over there. You know what? if they can get this plane that's by the way, it's now under CDC control, and from what I understand, the CDC is not really in the sharing mood when it comes to this resource of this containment plane, this plane that has the ability to basically be airtight even in a crash. It can prevent the virus from escaping. If they can utilize this resource and move these individuals who have the Ebola virus to America, why can't they move all the equipment necessary and the personnel necessary to these individuals? Wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't it make a little more sense not to put Americans at risk? We're told this is an American, this is a person, he's a father, a son, he's a real person, and we need to really stop being so selfish here, because we need to stop worrying about ourselves and worry about this guy. He was doing a good thing. He's over there trying to help people. But come on, are you really going to put everybody at risk for one individual, which you can actually give him the help he needs? You can actually, we are the most technologically advanced country in the world. We have the most resources, supposedly, even though it's all fiat money and we're just printing and digitizing. But I'm not going to get into that topic right now. But we have the ability to do this. So why didn't we just go to him? Why do we got to bring him to us and put everyone at risk? To me, it seems like a bad idea. That's just me. Anyway, those of you who are familiar with the YouTube channel Storm Clouds Gathering, I have a video from that YouTube channel that they're playing, and it's called Ebola, What You're Not Being Told. And you all have to hear this information. I think it's extremely important that we know exactly what is going on with this virus and what our government is not letting us know about. So I highly recommend you check out Storm Clouds Gathering on YouTube. You subscribe to their stuff. Always excellent stuff. They have sources cited, and you don't have to take their word for it. You can actually check their sources. So anyway, here's a clip from Storm Clouds Gathering.
The information that I'm about to present here is frightening. There's really no way around that. However, I request that you do your very best to maintain a calm state of mind. Right now in West Africa, the worst Ebola outbreak in history is in full swing and is jumping across borders at an alarming rate. Already, it has spread to 4 countries: Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and now Nigeria. This latest jump into Nigeria is particularly serious since the infected individual carried the virus by plane into Lagos, Nigeria, a city with a population of over 21 million. Doctors Without Borders has referred to the outbreak as, quote, out of control. To make matters worse, there's something very, very important that the corporate media and public health officials aren't telling you regarding this crisis. You'll notice if you read virtually any mainstream article on the topic that they make a point of insisting that Ebola is only transferred through physical contact with bodily fluids. This is not true at all. A study conducted in 2012 showed that Ebola was able to travel between pigs and monkeys that were in separate cages that were never placed in direct contact. Though the method of transmission in the study was not officially determined, one of the scientists involved, Dr. Gary Kobinger from the National Microbiology Laboratory at the Public Health Agency of Canada, told BBC News that he believed the infection was spread through large droplets that were suspended in the air. Quote, what we suspect is happening is that large droplets, they can stay in the air, but not long, they don't go far, but they can be absorbed in the airway, and this is how the infection starts. And this is what we think because we saw a lot of evidence in the lungs of the non-human primates that the virus got in that way. End quote. Translation, Ebola is an airborne virus. Now, I'm not going to speculate as to whether these so-called journalists and public health officials who keep repeating the official line regarding the means of transmission are lying or are just participating in some massive display of synchronized incompetence. But what I will say is that this shoddy reporting is most likely getting people killed right now and may in fact be putting all of humanity in danger. How so? Well, think about it for a second. By convincing people that the virus cannot travel through the air, important precautions that could reduce the spread of the virus are not being taken. For example, the other passengers on the plane that traveled to Lagos, Nigeria, were not quarantined. To put this into context, Ebola kills between 50 and 90% of its victims. So the stakes are very, very high here. This particular strain of Ebola is not Ebola Zaire. This is a new strain, and it may in fact be more dangerous than the Zaire variety, not because of any difference in the symptoms. Symptoms are identical, but because this new virus seems to be harder to contain. Whether this is due to some characteristic of the virus itself or merely dumb luck is uncertain at this time. but the rate at which this outbreak has extended its range is unprecedented. Right now, the question on everybody's mind is whether this virus will spread outside of Africa. Considering the fact that Ebola has a 3-week incubation period, can travel through the air, and has already hitchhiked on an international flight, this is a real possibility. There are some who are downplaying the probability of this outcome, and to be honest, I hope that they're right. But the simple fact of the matter is that these people are basing their assessment on the faulty premise that Ebola is not an airborne virus. Now, the first thing you might be feeling when looking at this situation is a sense of fear and helplessness. While that's a perfectly normal reaction, it's not really helpful. Instead, we should be thinking in terms of practical steps we can take to influence the outcome. One thing we can all do is start confronting journalists and public officials who keep making false statements regarding the way Ebola spreads. In the transcript of this video on SCG News, we will include links to the original study and the BBC's report in 2012. Use these sources and this video to put them in their place. We also need to confront the fact that there isn't a full-out, coordinated international effort to contain this. This is being treated like a sideshow. This crisis has a very real potential of becoming a main event. The doctors on the ground in West Africa don't have enough staff or resources to deal with the situation. It is absolutely inexcusable for the U.S. and the EU to be investing billions of taxpayer dollars into their little power games in Ukraine and Syria, while Ebola is getting a foothold in Africa. This is serious. Call them, write them, heckle them in the streets if you have to, but don't allow them to ignore this issue. Now, whether or not official policy towards the Ebola crisis changes, there are some precautions that you should take right now for yourself and for your family. 1. Know where you would go if you need to leave your home on short notice. If Ebola escapes Africa, the last place you want to be is in a densely populated metropolitan area. It may be that the most practical destination for your family would be a rural area near your current home. But if you're already having concerns about the government that you're living under and how they might handle a crisis like this, then you might want to start looking at some alternatives. Finding an alternative location that suits your family's needs is something that requires a lot of time and research. So don't put this off. Primary characteristics you should be examining in an alternative destination are geography, political environment, climate, population density, and visa terms and requirements. Ideally, you would want to end up somewhere that is geographically isolated to some degree. And this brings us to number 2. If you don't have passports for yourself and each of your dependents, get them now. This is not to say that you should leave the country, but you should have the means to do so. In countries where the Ebola outbreak is underway, it's getting harder and harder to exit. Borders are getting closed down. Flights are getting cut off. This didn't happen right away. But you definitely don't want to be waiting for your passport to show up if Ebola arrives in your city. 3. Know what you would carry with you if you had to leave on short notice. Have those items ready and have the luggage to carry them. It would be wise to consider buying a pack of surgical masks as part of this. Now, if you think about it, these preparations are wise steps to take regardless of whether the Ebola situation deteriorates or not. Knowing where you would go in an emergency and having the means to get there on short notice is important for a wide variety of situations. The civilian population of Iraq, Syria, East Ukraine, and Gaza can attest to that. Whatever you do, don't let fear take control of your mind. Take the steps you can take now, monitor the situation calmly, and be prepared to adapt if necessary.
This is exactly what I was just saying. You know, it is so important that we take this threat seriously and we don't underplay this and we don't allow our politicians to tell us not to worry about it and that it's only communicable through the contact, physical contact of bodily fluids. You know, that this is just not true. The fact is that this virus has been airborne, and it has the potential to get even worse if it mutates. This is a serious threat that we face. So the question is, how do you kill Ebola? How do you protect your family? How do you do something to prevent your family from contracting this virus? Well, first and foremost, you know, it's easy to say, don't leave the house if you can avoid it. You know, and I'm not saying hole up, become hermits, you know, worried. You know, obviously all of us, many of us, have jobs that we have to go to. You know, we have to, you know, be a productive member of society. So there are some risks that you have to take, you know, in order to sustain your living. You have to leave your house, you know. So the question is, you know, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk for you to go to, you know, an airport and, you know, travel? Do you think that you have to do that, especially an international airport? I think that those are going to be highly contagious areas that probably should be avoided. And in terms of, you know, other activities that you do, you may want to actually just weigh the risk. Is it worth going out to that concert because, You could potentially get infected and not know it for up to 21 days, and then bring it back to your loved ones. And how many more people will be infected based on actions that you took? So again, we're back to the question: how do you kill Ebola? What do you do? What can you do to prevent it? Those actions, not leaving your house, that's one of them. But as far as sterilizing things and everything, one thing I want to point out that can kill Ebola is bleach, and another thing is chlorine. I was actually reading an article, and it was saying that the amount of chlorine that's currently in our water system is enough to kill the virus. So we're talking about a minimal amount of chlorine. So what you can do, first and foremost, obviously, to prevent the airborne spread is to get surgical masks, like the video just said, storm clouds gathering. The surgical mask that you want to get is something at or above the level of N95 or N100 surgical masks. Those will do the trick. Additionally, you may want to supply yourself with some surgical gloves, things that you can take off and prevent the exposure. Additionally, just washing your hands. Simple hygiene is extremely, extremely important in cases of viral outbreak and things like that. One thing that I would like to point out is the history behind the bubonic plague, and there's actually quite an interesting take on it, and there's some history behind it that is rather anti-Semite. During the bubonic plague, thought that the Jewish people were actually spreading the virus. They were actually responsible for this virus, and that it was all their design, that they were basically doing it. And anyway, the reason why is because the Jewish people were actually dying at significantly less rates, lower rates than the rest of the population. And the ultimate question that had to be asked is why? Why were Jewish people dying at such lower rates than the rest of the population? Well, one is the anti-Semitic hate that was going on at that time. It isolated this culture, so that these people, they had a community within a society that was kind of isolated. They kept to themselves, and there was a lot of hate towards these people, so they didn't go out and expose themselves to people that had the bubonic plague. Additionally, these people, the Jewish people, they were adhering strictly to Orthodox Jewish code of hygiene, where they washed their hands and their bodies several times a day. And this is something that was just unheard of at this time. No one washed their hands or even showered very frequently. I mean, this is something that was just unheard of. So the amount of hygiene that the Jewish people had, it actually prevented this virus from spreading. And it's important to note that because of this, they were looked at as part of the problem. It's in the same anti-Semitic hate that we see nowadays. People are looking for a scapegoat. It happened in World War II, and we're seeing it now with the Islamo-Nazis that are targeting the Jewish people, and we got the Palestinians that are trying to spread hate among these people, and they're saying that they support multiple viewpoints, as we heard in the video from David Horowitz talking to the Muslim Student Association student, the female that was talking to him, how she supported the Jewish people gathering in Israel so that the Islamic terrorists out there did not have to hunt them down globally. They would prefer them to be in one place so they don't have to hunt them down globally. She supported that. This is the kind of hate I'm talking about. They're just looking for somebody to hate, and the Jewish people have been the target forever. It just seems like no matter what they do, Jewish people are always the target, which is why I stand with Israel, and I stand with those who stand with Israel. Anyway, another thing that you can do to stop the spread of Ebola is, like I was saying, the bleach and chlorine solution with water. Okay, either one, bleach or chlorine mixed with water. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit in the bottle, and you mix it up. You put it in a spray bottle, and you can spray yourself down, and it'll kill the virus on you. Additionally, what they're doing in these containment centers is they have a tray with about an inch or two of this bleach or chlorine solution mixed with water, and the people will step into that tray, and it will kill the virus on their feet or their shoes. And these are important steps to take. This is something that you need to know if you're starting to see this virus spread. I'm not saying that you need to do this stuff right now. You don't need to have gloves and masks out right now. You're more than welcome to, as far as I'm concerned. If you want to take those precautions, go right ahead. But if you start seeing this virus come to your city, if you start seeing this virus in your street. You start seeing it coming through your front door. These kind of situations are important to know how you can prevent the spread of this deadly communicable disease. Again, 50 to 90% of all victims of this virus die. It is a deadly virus. It's not the common cold, and it's even not the flu virus, which, by the way, the flu virus kills many, many people every year. So it's important to keep this stuff in mind. And one thing it's also important to keep in mind is that our government, they don't care about protecting us. In fact, they have, I beat this dead horse all the time, but I need to say it again. They have no legal obligation to protect us. None whatsoever, as deemed by the United States Supreme Court. They have no legal obligation to protect us. They don't care about protecting us. All they care about is protecting their own power. And once you understand that, you're going to understand some motivations that they have here. So, what better way to expand on their power than to create crises that will put fear into the hearts of Americans? If you're afraid of what can happen, if you're terrified of this virus, and they try to put in some legislation that's ubiquitous and it starts really affecting civil rights and things like that, and they say it's for the greater good, for the herd, for the collective, rights be damned as far as the government's concerned. The Constitution is suspended. Martial law is declared. You are not subject to the Constitution anymore. You're subject to the whims of the government. And this is what we saw after 9/11 with the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act. They were passed. So many people supported it, and now they realize it was a mistake. These programs, these legislations, they're not going away. They're with us. Until we fight them and stop them in our tracks, repeal them, there's nothing we can do about it. The National Defense Authorization authorizes our government to disappear American citizens without probable cause, without reasonable suspicion. All it takes is for you to be a suspected terrorist or to be involved in some kind, or to be suspected to be involved in some kind of terrorist activity. Suspected. It doesn't take any kind of evidence. You're guilty until proven innocent. The Patriot Act, it expanded the governmental powers to where they can basically do whatever they want. They can detain you, without cause, indefinitely. The National Defense Authorization Act, back to that, it gives the government the ability to assassinate American citizens, again, just for being suspected of terrorism. Suspected. No probable cause, no reasonable suspicion. Doesn't matter. No such thing as judicial review, or the judicial process is suspended during that. You don't get to see if you can be defended or anything like that. Evidence doesn't go to trial. You just go into a black hole and you never come out, or they kill you, and they say, "Oh, hey, no worries, he was a terrorist." That's all it takes. So anyway. We've got a bunch of other stuff here to cover. We got about 17 minutes in the show. We're going to go ahead and cut to another commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to cover more about the government and some of the expanding powers. What I feel will really illustrate why they don't care and why we need to be mistrustful of our government. So don't go anywhere. You do not want to miss this next segment. So we'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move
back. When we last left, we were talking about the Ebola virus and the dangers in which it actually creates and our government's response to it. We were also talking about mistrust, the healthy mistrust that we should have for our government in regards to their response, how they really only care about their power. The bureaucracy protects the bureaucracy, and that's their number one priority. The expanding federal leviathan, and how this crisis can be used to actually expand that power. This is why we need to pay attention to this, and simultaneously our government's telling us, don't worry about it, everything will be fine, and I surely do hope that is the case, but the more I see our government's responses, this administration's response, the more fearful I am that this is not something that they're actually trying to stop, but they're trying to create more of a situation, more of a danger, and put more American lives at risk in order to gain more power. So Obama, he signed an executive order that allows them to disappear American citizens who have even a cough. So, you know, you're showing some kind of symptom. Okay, well, hey, this may be a good thing to quarantine people, but hey, you just have a cough, and they can quarantine you. And even healthy Americans can be quarantined. So this is something to really be aware of. And one thing I want to point out, as far as, you know, if our government really wanted to protect us, you know, if they were serious about protecting us from threats and national security was such an issue for them, there are things that they would have done already. All right, and one of those things to me would be to take measures to protect us and our power grid from an EMP attack, an electromagnetic pulse. Okay. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it will destroy electronic equipment. All right, it's an EMP is produced from a nuclear weapon. One way to conduct an EMP attack is to detonate a nuclear weapon in an atmosphere, above, you know, higher in elevation, above an area. The bomb doesn't have any devastating effects from the nuclear attack itself, but the EMP is spread out into the atmosphere, and it will cause all electronic equipment to fry. So if our government was really serious, if they really wanted to prevent us from having some kind of terror attack or something happening here at home, they would have protected the grid from this. It's possible. The technology already exists right now, currently, to protect our grid from EMP attacks. So has it happened? Have they taken steps to protect our grid? The answer is no. They have not taken steps to protect our grid. And according to Breitbart.com, EMP is like super lightning that can damage and destroy electronic systems everywhere across vast regions, potentially across entire continents, or even the entire continent of the United States. An EMP catastrophe will black out the national electric grid for months or years, stopping the operation of all critical infrastructures, communications, transportations, banking, and finance, food and water that sustain modern society and the lives of the American people. EMP is the ultimate cyber threat, a high-tech means of killing millions the old-fashioned way through starvation, disease, and societal collapse. An EMP can be generated by a terrorist or rogue state nuclear missile, or even by lofting a warhead with a balloon, perhaps launched off a freighter near our shores to preserve anonymity and burst at high altitude. A single crude nuclear weapon could generate an EMP that would collapse electric grids and critical infrastructures everywhere in the United States. The EMP Commission provided a cost-effective plan endorsed by all subsequent U.S. government studies that could within a few years protect U.S. critical infrastructures from the worst effects of EMP. Indeed, protecting the 300 most important high-energy transformers that are indispensable to the national power grid is estimated to cost $100 to $200 million, about $1 for every life that would be saved. $100 to $200 million. Does that seem like an outrageous amount to you guys? Honestly, I think that is money well spent. We're spending more than that in foreign aid. We're giving money away to other countries, vastly more money than $100 to $200 million for other countries to set up their infrastructures, while we're ignoring the protection of our own. You know, I would absolutely be for them actually, trying to do something to protect us from this threat that it It could happen. I mean, this is something that other countries and terrorists know that this is something that they can do to damage us and devastate us, send us back to the Stone Age. Millions of lives lost. Anyway, Breitbart goes on to say this alone is probably not sufficient protection, but it is the absolute minimum necessary to create the possibility of saving millions of American lives. And they're talking about this new act. It's called the SHIELD Act, which has been introduced by Trent Franks, a Republican out of Arizona, and co-sponsored by Congressman Yvette Clarke, a Democrat from New York, and would implement the most important recommendation of the EMP Commission. SHIELD would empower the U.S. Federal Energy Regulation Commission to require the electric power industry to protect the national grid from EMP. SHIELD would also require the industry to protect the grid by selectively hardening the vital components by using surge arresters, blocking devices, Faraday cages, which, by the way, they protect from EMP attacks. So you put it in a metal cage, you put some kind of insulator around it, and you prevent all electronic signals from coming into that device and frying the electronic equipment. And again, it can be fried even if it's turned off. So your car sitting there in the driveway, it's turned off, EMP strike happens, all of a sudden the computer in there is fried, your battery's probably not going to work, things like that. It can happen even with the device being off. So anyway, and they also recommend other proven technologies that the Department of Defense has known for 50 years can reliably protect military systems from EMP attacks. So this leads us into the next segment of the show, and we like to call it the Listener Challenge. Here we go.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge.
All right, this is the segment of the show where I challenge you to get active, get on the move, do something, for the betterment of your country. Try to do something that you believe in. In this week's challenge, Mack, if you choose to accept it, is to contact your congressman or men or women and tell them to support the SHIELD Act. Ask them where they stand and push them on this subject. Make sure that they understand the importance of this legislation and how vulnerable we are. It's extremely important that we all get as much information about this out as possible, and we tell them that we want them to actually do something to protect us. We are so vulnerable to EMP attacks. We've done nothing, and the cost comparatively across the governmental spending is so minimal. We're not even talking about the same amount that we give in foreign aid. This to me seems like a common sense solution, and I really do challenge you all to contact your congressmen and women and find out where they stand. Make sure that they're doing something. Don't let them get away with a non-answer, and really push them on this issue. So that's this week's challenge. Stand up, speak out, get on the move. Anyway, we have a segment of the show that we recently started, and we're calling this segment the hashtag game. And, we asked people on Twitter and Facebook, we asked you guys to use the hashtag America's Biggest Problem. And I asked you guys to tell us what you think America's biggest problem that we face is. And we got some very interesting responses from those of you who participated. I sure do appreciate that, by the way. Mark on Twitter, he tweeted, America's biggest problem is an unchecked imperial president. And I honestly, I agree with that, and I think it's something that we definitely need to be concerned about. It's something that has been a growing trend. And I have a clip here of Obama talking about how he's going to bypass Congress. Here it is.
But when Congress refuses to act, and as a result hurts our economy and puts our people at risk, then I have an obligation as president to do what I can without them.
No, he does not have an obligation to do what he can without them. He literally doesn't even have the authority to do what he can without them. Moving on, we also had Dan Sandini of the Daylight Disinfectant. By the way, check out his website, daylightdisinfectant.com, or you can check his YouTube channel out. Great content on there, Daylight Disinfectant on YouTube. Anyway, he said that the Democrat, he used a different word, but I'm using the word felines or cats. Democrat cats are America's biggest problem. So, though I agree that Democrats, progressives, socialists, communists, and Marxists are a real problem in America, I personally don't believe that they're the source of all of our problems. And let me explain why. I think that our biggest problem that we face right now, the greater problem that America faces is actually apathy. This show, as you all know, was created to inspire you all to stand up for your rights, which it's something that I take very seriously. The problem in America right now is that most Americans don't even know what their rights are, and they don't care. And they certainly don't try to keep our politicians held accountable. The real reason that we have out-of-control leftist statists in office right now is because we have an apathetic citizenry. And as you all might know, I do a segment on our YouTube channel called Mack on the Street. I go around Portland, and I'm joined by my cameraman, Leo Stratton. He's awesome. He does great work, and thanks to him, I'm able to do what we do out there. But anyway, we go around Portland, Oregon, and we ask people a mix of pop culture and current event trivia, political trivia as well, and see what they know. About 9 times out of 10, people will know the pop culture answers, but they have no clue about the current events or politics, okay? And, I have a clip of the last time we did this. I got a couple minutes left in the show. I'll go ahead and play it for you guys. Let me find the clip real fast, and I'll put this thing on for you, if I can find it. And, of course, right now I can't seem to track it down. That's excellent. Anyway, so the clip basically, it shows me going around talking to people, and people just really don't know the risks that they're facing, right now, or just similar trivia kind of things. It's really ridiculous at some of the. Okay, I found the video here. We got common quotes throughout history, and then I asked people who the Vice President of the United States is. Here's a clip.
Welcome to On the Move.
Before going solo, what band was Justin Timberlake a member of?
NSYNC.
Backstreet Boys.
Oh, NSYNC. Yeah.
NSYNC. Backstreet Boys or
wait, no.
The other one? NSYNC. Boys II Men. Backstreet Boys? Not Backstreet Boys.
As NSYNC. All right, finish this sentence. Give me liberty or give me blank.
Give me blank.
Peace.
Justice.
Give me liberty, give me death.
Justice.
Give me
Faith.
Justice. Death.
Death. What are some slang words for marijuana?
Chronic. Herb.
Mary Jane.
Tree.
Pot. Weed.
Pot. Reefer. Ganja.
You got any more?
Chronic.
Mary Jane. Ganja.
Weed.
Who is the Vice President of the United States?
Hillary Clinton.
Wait, is it? Hold on, is it? Is this Hillary Clinton?
I don't know. Come on. I don't know. Obama's president, and now you're making a fool out of us. Oh my God! Now I'm totally blanking. Barack Obama, and this is really ridiculous.
I don't remember his name.
All right, so that's the clip. You guys can check out the video on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And, I got more on here that I'd like to talk about regarding this, but we got 1 minute left. But I think that the apathetic nature of our society is really the main problem that we have and that we're facing right now. So anyway, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, members of the Mack Pack. I really do appreciate your support. For tuning in week after week, it means a lot to me, and I sure do appreciate your continued support. I also want to thank our special guest, D.S. Edwards, for joining the show today. Don't forget to tune in next week, guys. And you can check us out on our website, onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.